When you have your girls, you're never alone. You get together for coffee, maybe to work out, or just to laugh. We created Hey Girl, just for you. Can't wait for you to join us.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here on another episode of Hey Girl. I'm so
Yes,
excited to have you with us. This is
I am too.
episode 6.
I can't
We're
believe
doing
it.
big things. We're doing big things, guys. I'm Kim with an E,
And I'm Kim with an I.
and we are so glad to have you here. So, Hey Girl is an extension of your sister circle, a safe space where you can share your experiences and be affirmed. Whether you're married or single, stay at home, or have a career, our lives are so complex and at times
Yes,
can be overwhelming.
yes,
But we believe in the power of conversation. Sometimes just
absolutely.
knowing you're not alone in the struggle, whatever it is, can help you get through. So that is
Amen.
why we are here to help you get through. And man, last week, what an awesome show. We had
Oh,
Dr.
it was
D Knight
wonderful.
on talking about how listen. She set us free, honestly. She set us free
Yes.
with her
As
wisdom.
always, as always.
And her advice on how to navigate our emotions during this time. I mean, that's a
Yes.
whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
God bless her. She did that. Seriously. If you missed it, listen, go back and watch that episode because she laid it down and she just really made it plain.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
um,
I agree.
it was so good. And you know what, Kim Jacobs, I there was another resource that we offered that we put up last week that I want to kind
Mm-hmm.
of go back to
Right.
because it's really appropriate even for our discussion today, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That coping kit that the Black Girl Therapy for Black Girls shared, we kind of adapted that as a resource that I think
Mm-hmm.
will really be relevant even to our conversation today. So
Absolutely.
what that is, the coping kit, guys, if you weren't on last week, it's just a thing that you can create for yourself to prepare for those times which you know are coming. If you're not going through it now, you about to. The things that are going to become overwhelming, or when you know you're going to be stressed, or you know those times that are inevitable. Creating a coping kit is a way to get through it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
plan in advance a pretty box or shoe box or whatever it is, and fill it with some of your favorite things that you can go to when you're in those moments. And
Right.
so some of those things might be a journal, maybe a brain teaser or puzzle that will just help you kind of get your mind off of whatever it is. Um, they say maybe something you can hold, like a stress ball,
Right.
Play-Doh. That can be
Mm-hmm.
so therapeutic, just having something in your hand
Oh
that just
yeah.
kind of play with. And then music, creating a
Yeah.
playlist that
Yes.
your favorite songs that really
Yeah.
just fill your spirit.
Yeah. And
Um,
candles along with that. I'm a candle
Candles.
girl. I
I
love
know.
candles. I
Like
yes.
Yeah, like we were saying last week, aromatherapy is a thing. Like it's a
It
real
is.
thing.
It is.
Dr. Knight confirmed that last week. So put your favorite scents in there, whether it's a candle or lotion. Maybe it's pictures from happy memories that you've had in the past that you can reflect on. I mean, have you ever looked at old pictures and just been like, ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Bring
can be
back good
really
memories.
soothing.
It
Yeah.
really could. A stress reliever. Yeah.
Maybe prayers that you've said in the past. I know there's sometimes books of prayer that might you might want to add to a box like this that you could go back and read through. So
Right.
just
Right.
to, yeah, have you guys think about that and maybe think about what you might put in a coping kit of
And
your
a coping
own.
kit. Right, right.
Yeah.
So, along with that coping kit, and along with going with the topic of perseverance this month, and our discussion with Dr.
Yeah.
D. Knight last week in mental health, well, this week we have a wonderful special guest. She is a friend of mine, and not only is she a friend, she's family. She's my cousin, Dr. Morissa Rice. And I'm telling you, you're going to love her. You're going to love her. She's just awesome.
Yeah.
Love to talk, a good conversation. She never meets a stranger. I'm telling you, she never, the first time I met Dr. Rice, was, and we all call her Reese. So you may hear me call her Reese because that's what I'm used to calling her. But the first time I met her, it was like I met an old friend. You know, we've been friends forever. So that's what she brings, and just smart and wonderful. So I just want, before we introduce her, I want to read her bio. Dr. Morissa Rice, affectionately known as Reese, is a daughter, mother, wife, and captain in the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps. Dr. Rice has over 20 years of combined county and federal public health experience in a variety of disciplines, to include women's health, maternal and child health, and compliance and program management, to name a few. She is a graduate of Spelman College and Hofstra University and Walden University. If you ask her if she thought she would be in the career she's in at this time, she would tell you, no way. This is why she loves sharing her journey on the road could have never imagined, that allowed her to fulfill a deep purpose and do God's work. However, it all would not be possible without the love and support of her family, to include her husband, children, parents, and a bunch of family and friends. When she's not working, she's definitely spending time with friends and family, shopping at a spa, and planning staycations and other trips. However, COVID-19 has kept her busy in her line of work and paused everything else for now.
Mm-hmm.
So, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Morissa Rice.
Welcome.
Hey, Dr. Rice.
Hey,
So good
everybody,
to
how are
have
you?
We're great.
Yay.
Thank you for being with us today.
Love it, love it. Thank you for having me on. And so I'm just excited because while I was deployed, I had an opportunity to see Kim go live. And I was like, what is Kim going live about? And then I
I never
really
do,
enjoyed, right. And then I enjoyed the conversation that she was having with you guys. And I think we were just talking about marriage, and somebody had given advice about not telling your mother certain things because once you resolve it, the mother is still stewing in it. And I believe that is true. So I was paying attention, ladies, even while deployed. So thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so glad to have you here.
Yes.
So Kim just read your bio, and that's fantastic. There's so many great things that are on there. If you could just kind of enlighten those of us who are ignorant to the field that you're in and the work that you do, can you give us just a little insight into what your duties are in your position as captain in the U.S. Public Health Commission? Sounds
Yes. So that's one of the things. As for those of you who work in the government, you know the government has a lot of acronyms. So we're affectionately known as United States Public Health Service, or PHS. And so we are comprised of lots of officers, almost up to 6,500 officers. And we serve in a lot of agencies, primarily Health and Human Services. So that includes FDA, that includes NIH, CDC, and then the agency I belong to, Health Resources and Services Administration, affectionately known as HRSA. And you'll find us in a variety of different roles. Many of us are clinicians, dentists, we have engineers, my field, healthcare administration, public health. We serve across a lot of things. And primarily, when the duty calls, we deploy. We deploy for natural disasters, mainly hurricanes. But as we know, COVID-19 took us on a journey that none of us will ever forget. And so it was one of these things that, again, as I mentioned in my bio, I would have never imagined this career. Wearing a uniform, are you kidding me? Kindergarten through 12th grade, I wore uniform, and I vowed that I would never wear uniform again. And in 2007, here I am wearing uniform again up until this point. So it's just been really a great journey. I may even have some of my colleagues that have joined in, and if they have, hey, everybody, some of my teammates that deployed with me. I mean, it was just amazing. So I know we'll get to all of that. So I'll stop here now.
Okay. Well, so where have you had to go in your line of work? What are some of the places where you've been deployed prior to this most recent one? We'll get to that, but let's just talk about your career up to this point.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I have had the opportunity to deploy a variety of different places. And then as a junior officer, I had experience for an international deployment. And so that was to El Salvador and Nicaragua, and it was aboard the U.S. Comfort ship. and we were doing a humanitarian mission where we were just providing basic care. So what was very interesting and surreal for me is, I will fast forward a little bit to New York. While we were there, as many of you may know, the Comfort was instrumental in responding also to COVID in New York. So it was really nice and emotional for me to see this big ship pull into the port that I had just been on years ago. And so that was just a great experience for me. I've also done hurricane response, you name it. North Carolina did Hurricane Maria, which was in Puerto Rico, which took me away from my family for 30 days or more. Typically, our deployments are like 2 weeks, but things are changing for us, and we're being seen as a service that can respond and be available. So we're seeing a change in the way in which we respond. But one thing I can say about our officers, we're ready, we get packed, and we go out the door.
Wow. So how many deployments would you say you've in total, do you think you've had, or is it too many to remember?
It's a lot. It's a lot. I would say at a minimum of 9 deployments, and they can range from doing a mass immunization project that we did in DC. When I first came in, I had just gotten my commission, and I was just eager to really engage myself as a commission corps officer. So I actually did a mass immunization vaccine where I went and I helped out with the administration pieces of things. And then as large as, again, COVID-19 response, hurricane response, and then Puerto Rico also. So quite a few responses.
Yeah.
Wow.
So is every deployment, does it require different things of you, or are you doing similar things each time you go?
So I have grown in my skill set of being a member that has deployed. Interesting story. My first deployment, I had just come back from getting my eyes dilated. So as you know, you put those little special glasses on, and I'll never forget, I went to my laptop, and I remember being on call, and I asked my husband, I said, could you just look and read my emails? He said, there is something here that says you have an itinerary. I said, for what? So it was to deploy within a couple of hours. And so that was actually in Texas.
A
couple of hours, absolutely. And so after a while, I thought about it. I said, well, if I can respond in a couple of hours, and most times we usually respond within 48 hours, I need to be on one of these teams. We call them rapid deployment force teams. And so that's how I ended up getting on there. So I grew in my position. That one, I was just kind of filling in anywhere. I consider myself to be a generalist. But then I started to show some skills, such as in administration and management organization. So I was named admin chief. And then over time, I moved up into my team lead role that I'm currently in. I was a deputy team lead, but on this last mission, I was the team lead. So I've served in a variety of capacities, not clinical, which allows me to be able to use some of my organizational skills, programmatic skills in the deployment setting.
Okay. So for COVID-19, so how was it when you received that call? I mean, I'm sure after you were hearing that once it was in China and was moving this way, I was like, there's only a matter of a couple of days it's going to be here in the United States, and which it did. So whenever it hit, I think, California, did you say, I think I'm going to be deployed? I mean, and then when you said that to yourself, if you said that, when you received the call to say, hey, it's time for you to deploy, what was your feeling about that, especially going into that hot spot?
Yeah. So the way it works is you kind of get a little heads up because, again, we started seeing the telltale signs that it was going to be turning into a pandemic. And then when it did, one thing about the commission course, we stand ready. We usually get notification that everyone is on call. And so over time, my on-call month was not quite March, but it was coming up. But we know it's all hands on deck. So as we were leading up to it, you start getting emails that say stand ready. So you get your go bag together. And what that is your bag with your uniforms, your necessities. You start getting your family care plan together because many people may have children and they have to figure out what they're going to do with their children. Fortunately for me, I have to give a shout out real quick to my children who are our college graduate. Taylor's on. Hey, Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
And then also my son, who's a high school. So for me, this particular time, it wasn't a matter of what I was going to do with them, but it was like, okay, I know we're probably going to be gone for an extended period of time. So you start wondering because we heard all of the talk about not having enough PPE and not really knowing what the missions are going to be. And so you get a little bit nervous. But as you all know me, I walk with God all the time. Right. I said a prayer. I said, Lord, if this is where you want me to go, then I will go. Funny story, you know me, I got to tell a funny story. So we were just in New York in the early part of March with my mother celebrating her birthday. We were out. We did some Broadway shows. We got to see Tina Turner. We were, just really had a really good time. And so I was thinking, you start thinking about ways in which you could get out of doing deployments. I was like, well, I was in New York and I don't know if I completed my quarantine period. Well, I actually did. I had completed the quarantine period. So at that point in time, I knew it was just time for me to just go ahead, get that bag ready. And my husband, he was very helpful, and they drove me to where I needed to be, and off I went. So yes, there was some fear, there was some anxiety, there was some uncertainty. But most times when we go into these types of responses, we don't know what we're going to see there. And we
Right.
have to remain flexible. And that is key for all of us when we're on a deployment team.
Yeah,
Wow.
we talk a lot about the impact that things have had lately on us as women, us as wives, as mothers. And so you mentioned your family. I'm just interested in knowing how that has been for your family. I mean, I understand in a recent Vogue magazine, you have that quote where, I left behind a husband and two children. They understand the oath that I took. But does that make it any easier just because they understand, like in these moments, particularly this most recent one, are there moments when they're like, oh, do you have to go? Like, do you all sometimes struggle with that?
Yeah, I would say so. My family is very strong, especially my children. And I know that it did bother them as much as it bothered me. And we all kind of get very quiet and we just kind of go about doing. I remember packing, just putting my stuff in the bag, like, okay, am going. Maybe there's an email to say, hold on, hold on. Well, that email never came. But at the end of the day, again, just through prayer and just, perseverance, we go. And as for the family, they've seen me go for an extended period of time. I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety, but before we parted company, we said a prayer at the car, and then off I went to do what I had to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I know when I heard that you were going, I mean, I was like, oh my goodness. And she's going to the hot spot, which was New York. I mean, that even gave me anxiety.
Yeah.
I mean, during this time and being where you were deployed, I mean, did you ever have a moment that you had like kind of had to regroup and put your mind on a positive track because so much other things were going that was happening that was, that could easily um, make you sad and all that. So how did you, kind of maneuver through
Yeah.
all that?
How do you mentally,
Prepare for
stay
that.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay
Even when
Yeah.
you're in the
prepared.
midst of it. Yeah.
Right. I will say a lot of people don't really know my background and my training. I've had to work in some positions where I've had to deliver results to people that weren't so pleasant or work with individuals. My past experiences, I've worked in the field of HIV and AIDS and syphilis, where you go out into the field and you have to give people these results, but then you also have to teach them resiliency. And that comes with training and time and maturity. So I think for me going out there on this particular mission, those of you who know me, I'm a positive person. It's really hard for me to get down. I'm not saying that I don't do that, but I will say that it was through conversations with my mother, conversations with my husband, my daughter, my children, my sister circle, my group. They know me affectionately, and we call ourselves Fosse Posse, and then my Spelman sisters, just family, the text messaging, all of those things really held me together while I was out there in the field. Not to mention my teammates. We had many of us that are praying warriors. I mean, we were praying. We were doing a lot of anointing going on. We had some comical times going on. Love the memes, lots of different things to kind of help us because you have to stay focused primarily on the mission. Because if you
Right.
don't do that, the team can fall apart. And so I
Right.
think for me being a team lead, that was really the thing to make sure I keep the team together because we had many individuals that were brilliant and brought expertise to the mission. And then my responsibility was to pull it all together and hold it together.
Mm.
So that pressure, well, it's interesting because on one hand, I would think the pressure might get to you because you are the lead and people are looking to you to be strong. But I hear you saying that even as you are the leader, you are still relying on your support, whether that be your sister circle or those that you work with. And so, I think sometimes women as leaders feel as though they have to just take it on with, and be soldiers all by themselves without the help of anyone. But I hear you
Right.
saying that that's not how you made it through.
So that also comes from mentorship. I had a good mentor that realized early on I was the type that loved to multitask and do it all. And she said, you are going to burn yourself out. You have to hold individuals accountable. You have to lean on people with their levels of expertise, and you have to rely on them. And that's exactly what happened. I have to give credit to my team, because if we didn't do it with a team approach, there is no I in team. So if we didn't take that team approach out there in the field, we would have failed as an entity supporting the entire mission. It just wasn't about us. And I can talk a little bit about, how we all came together later on, but it was really about understanding the skill sets, the strengths that everyone brings, the weaknesses that everyone brings, and really pulling on those pieces there to make sure that we fulfill the mission.
Well, I would love for you to actually talk a little bit about that, because I know that I hear you talking about women that you are working with, and I know that sometimes I've heard women say, "Oh, I don't get along with other women, or I can't deal with women. They're messy, and this sister circle stuff. They're a little suspicious of that." So, what are your thoughts about women relying on other women for support?
Well, I'm a firm believer that you need to surround yourself with people who have like minds, but also hold you accountable.
Absolutely.
And all of my sister circles, we do not play around with each other. When we see somebody going down that slippery slope, we will say something. And I think it's the same approach that I've used out in the field. So one good thing about the strike team that we used, that we went out into the field, we've deployed together for several years. So we know everyone's personalities, and I think that helps when you can go out and you kind of know everyone. And then we also had some individuals that were new to our team, and I think just making sure everyone felt as though we have to be a family out here right now.
Right.
We are all that we have right now, so we have to be a family. And there are times, when you don't agree on things. However, we have to regroup, we have to come to a common ground, and we got to keep it moving. We don't have time for folks getting in their feelings. And or if someone is in their feelings, we tell them, you know what, it's okay. You take a little break. You need 15 minutes. You need an hour. What do you need to do? So we can all come back refreshed. So I think it's just having that perspective of just making sure that everyone is on the same page. But yes, we hold each other accountable. We did not have time for messy out there in the field on no missions, specifically this one, but on any mission, we do not have time for that.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah. I can imagine, like you said, Kim, just being around women in general can be messy, but you have to definitely surround yourself with like-minded women. It always very helpful. Very. So you had during this, your deployment, you had an interview with Vogue magazine. And I was so happy to see that. I was just like, oh my goodness. Yes. So you were like I said, you was in an interview with Vogue magazine, and you said it in there, and I quote, "I left behind a husband and 2 children. They understand the oath that I took." And for military people that's always deployed, I mean, you hear them say that, it's an oath that I took. When duty calls, I have to go. And that's something that your family have to understand and be committed to as well. So how has this experience changed them, or how did they go through this whole thing while you were away? I mean, what things would you guys do in order to stay connected, for them to motivate you, to keep you motivated as well?
Oh, yeah. So we did a lot of FaceTiming, lots of FaceTiming. And being honest and transparent, in the beginning, we were FaceTiming all the time. And then after a while, it got a little bit busy. So we weren't able to do that. But we kept our Sunday appointments, which we usually especially with Taylor being away at one period of time, we would have family prayer at 11:30, kind of check in to see what's going on with her at school and then what was going on. So we kept those things also. But just getting back to the oath that you take, it's very interesting because every time in the military you get promoted, you have to repeat your oath. Or if you attend a promotion ceremony, you repeat your oath. And your family's there, and the family is held accountable. And oftentimes, it's not just me. It's the support of them allowing me to be able to go out into the field and do what I need to do. And then back home, they were keeping themselves pretty busy. The garage got a makeover almost. They redid the garage and things like that. And some people picked up some culinary skills, and I told myself, well, y'all can continue all of that when I come back home.
Continue.
Please, this is wonderful stuff. And so, they had their coping mechanisms. They had themselves and, opportunity for them to bond and do different things as well. Because you know how it is. Sometimes when mom is in the mix, dad sometimes can't really jump in there. And I know me, I have a very dominant personality, I've been told. And so, it's always good for me to kind of step back and just see how things played out. So it worked out pretty well.
That's
Well,
good.
that's good. I mean, when you talk about taking an oath, it's not just you taking that oath then, it's your family that takes the oath too with you,
That's
whether
right.
they like it or not, I guess. But it sounds like they have really been there with you and been able to roll with it. That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
even prior to this, before, so I came to Maryland and I started my federal career first before I became a commissioned officer. And I remember thinking about the career, and I actually sat down with my husband and we talked about it to just make sure this was going to be a good choice for the family. So I think even just, before that, just sitting down and talking about it, is this going to be a good choice for the family? And it really has been. I mean, the perks, all of those great things of just being an officer, but for me, being able to serve and be called up for duty was just wonderful. And it's an extension of just my faith. We are here to serve. We're on borrowed time, as we see. And so it's all about service. I always tell people that I will rest when the Lord calls me home. Until then, I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be doing things. I just don't want life to just pass me by.
Right.
And I tell you what, being active duty, we do not have to worry about life passing us by because we stay busy.
I know.
I'm sure. Yeah, you stay busy. So as a mother, though, like leaving your family behind and being in that hot spot, what was it like? I mean, because here sitting at home, you see the news and you see all the
Yeah.
stories, but to actually be in a hot spot and seeing people, so many people, dying from it and suffering from this
Yeah.
disease, I mean, this virus.
Mhm.
I mean, what was it like for you to see that? And then could you share something, if you can, about what
Yeah.
certain things that you saw, whatever that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Just a day in the life.
Yeah, the day in the
Sure.
life of it.
Absolutely. So it was very fascinating because I've never arrived from Maryland to New York in 3 hours flat. So that was a sign right there that New York was on a lockdown because
Yeah.
we got
Wow.
there, left 8 o'clock p.m., arrived at like 11 p.m. And we could not believe it. And the streets were just completely empty. And mind you, I was just there 3 weeks prior to, and it was bustling and you were knocking into people to get where you had to go because it just so happened the early part of March, it was really a nice temperature outside. And so, once we arrived, we weren't sure what we were going to be facing. And as you guys know from the articles and things, we were at the Javits Center. And so what I loved about this mission is the fact that it was not just a public health service mission, PHS mission. We were actually joined. We had a joint command with DOD. So we had Army there. We had Air Force there. We had the National Guard there. We had the Army Corps of Engineers just making this happen. And initially some people would think, oh my goodness, how are you going to do that? Because we all do talk different languages. Everyone has their own structure. But I promise you, we all came together to serve these patients. And what I saw was committed individuals from our clinicians, from the administration. I mean, there were all types of things. You had your clinicians going, you had your administration going, you had logistics going, you had, which was very important, force protection, as we call it, which is our mental health providers. We really appreciated our mental health providers. PT, physical therapy. Funny story, like the first day I'm out there, all of a sudden, I'm getting a pinch in my neck. No worries, Captain Rice. We got dry needles out here. Okay, well, give me my dry needle treatment because I need that to be able to sustain myself out there. So these are the things that you don't think go into a mission that are very important. We had the chaplain out there willing to pray. People were able to do those types of things. The patients really appreciated having us there because, again, our primary mission was to decompress the hospitals because we were going to be treating patients that were with COVID-19 that were on the road to recovery. So just helping them get through that last moment of phase, if it was a little bit of oxygen or whatever it is that they need to help them successfully return back to home. So all I saw was a lot of positive things going on out there in the field because that's what we do, and it was new for the Army because they're used to treating soldiers. PHS, we're used to treating, the community, but not on a scale of a hospital level. Then you had the state. Then you also had the city all coming together, FEMA coming together to make this mission happen. And
Yeah.
so when we were getting ready to leave, we had celebrations of everyone, just getting ready to leave. We all thanked each other for the service because we said hands down, this was definitely one of a kind. The team knew my motto was, oh my goodness, we're going to have to be like a rubber band out here. We have to just stretch, stretch, stretch. Let's make sure
Yeah.
we maintain our elasticity because this
Mm-hmm.
mission is going to need us to do that until we completely finish. So it was really nice, and especially watching that last patient leave right before we decided to move into the next phase.
Yeah.
That was just really nice. They had the bagpipes out there, the news was out there for this particular patient, but every patient in that facility was very important. Of course, we had some patients that was not able to be successful, and however, but it was a small number compared to the amount of patients that we actually seen out there. So, I mean, the care that was provided there, many of the providers stated the patients thanked them for
Mm-hmm.
everything. I had an opportunity to go down onto the floor, and of course, you have to put on full PPE while you're there and be
Right.
able to just see the operations. But again, we were limiting those that needed to go down there on an as-needed basis because we had to make sure that we were maintaining our PPE, which we had plenty of. I know there are stories that were saying people were running out. We didn't have that. We had
Mm-hmm.
everyone protected with their proper PPE.
Wow. Well,
Oh,
that's
that's
good.
good.
Were you
Yeah.
afraid at all going, into, I know you were all covered up. Did you feel safe? You didn't have any fears about going in there and having to be kind of one-on-one with all those individuals who had the virus?
Right. So I didn't interact directly with the patients. I
Okay.
had to maintain my 6 feet while I was going down there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you do get a little nervous, like, oh my
You
goodness,
do.
because we
Yeah.
don't know much about COVID-19.
Right.
But
Right.
again, you
Right.
got to just walk with your faith. You got to
You
trust.
do.
And I just went on in there and I was like, we'll see what happens when I come out of here. And all worked out really fine.
Yeah, and if you're
Yeah.
like me, I think the first 2 weeks I would go to the store, whatever, come back, and my allergy, and I start coughing. I'm like, oh my goodness, do I have COVID? That just I was like, I have to get together. And like you said, your
I,
faith and not living
yeah.
in fear, not living in
Right.
fear. You do the best you can to try to protect yourself, and really and praying. That's really all you can do.
Yes.
So definitely not living in fear. We had a
Real quick.
question.
Yeah. Are you
Oh,
going to Tanya's question?
yes, to
Go
Tanya
ahead.
Laughing House.
Woo, my spelling classmate. Hey, Tanya. Class of 95.
Well, Tanya says, Marisa, how did your service in New York change, alter your perspectives about public health?
Oh, it just made me feel a sense of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
continued purpose. I always had purpose, but this one right here, it was like, wow. And I mean, it kind of, I think, improved everyone's confidence in what we do as a public health service,
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes it is, natural disasters, but we were like, wow, we really were part of something that's going to be history for us being
Right.
able to do that. So, I mean, I'm very proud to be a United States Public Health Service officer. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. We were talking about fears and paranoia when you're having to be just sort of on the front lines as you have been. And we read a story a few weeks ago in the New York Times about an ER doc who uh, ended up being diagnosed with COVID-19 and then
Mm-hmm.
recovered and has still had to go back and to do the service and do the work just as you have had to do. But ultimately, it got to her, right? It's Dr. Lorna Green. And she ended up
Mm-hmm.
committing suicide. And when you hear stories of that, like that, it's like, listening to you, it seems like, oh, you pushed through, you were strong, you all worked together, everything went well, no problems. You had a little fear, anxiety, but you didn't let it get to you. How do you keep from being overwhelmed by these things as some people have been?
Yeah.
It just becomes too much. How do you see your experience being different?
Yeah, well, first I have to pause, just for that family that lost a loved
Yeah,
one, a true pioneer, someone that was at the forefront and on the front lines for
right.
COVID-19. I just can't even imagine. And so I just ask that we all keep that family in prayer. But again, as I mentioned earlier about force protection, we really need to make sure that when we're going into these environments that we have our mental health providers out there. Mental health providers are very important. They have many of
Absolutely.
tools. And our mental health provider, we would have what we call a muster, which was a join-in. We had to do it virtually because we were trying to make sure that we took care of everyone. So we didn't have in-person meetings. And that was the other piece too, is we're used to being together during a deployment. Usually, like at the end of the day, we come together. We even had to socially distance. And I bring that up because some people need that. So what we would have her do is at the end of all of our calls, she would give us the mental health minute, and she would offer encouraging words and techniques and things. She even talked to us about our quarantine period, which was going to be 14 days, getting your quarantine plan together so that way you could make use of your time. Some people are not good with just being restricted. And so we really made sure we were attentive to everyone's needs, and we were listening to folks when they stated that I'm feeling burned out. And as I mentioned earlier, when those things popped up, we were like, okay, you have to take time out for yourself. And I have to be transparent and say that, with all missions, you have challenges out there. But what we all know is what happens at home stays at home, and so you work through those things. So I don't want anyone to come away thinking, oh, this was just as smooth as it could be. No, it was not. However, we were very resilient. We overcame our challenges so we could have a successful mission.
And you were gone. You were deployed for how long, Dr. Rice? For 45 days or
Something
more?
like that. Something like that. I don't even remember. Oh my goodness.
Lost track.
With the first day, I was like, oh my God, we have how many days to go? And it's not that you don't want to be there, but you do start counting down. And then finally, you just lose track of time. Like, I didn't know Monday from Wednesday. I didn't know Sunday from Tuesday. After a while, you just kind of just do what you have to do. And then, reintegrating myself back at home. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Today is actually Sunday and I'm not working,
Yes.
And so you do have to kind of regroup and get yourself back together.
Yeah. That's something that everyone needs to understand. First you had the mission where you're away from your family, and then you came back and couldn't get right back to your family. You still had to do your quarantine. Was it 14-day quarantine once you came back?
Yeah.
So even being back, you weren't quite back yet for a little while there.
That's right. Yeah. But my family, they still showed me love on Mother's Day, which was really nice. We were able to celebrate one of our graduates during that time. Zoom is the bomb.
Yes.
We'll be celebrating another one. But funny story about just, the whole New York thing. So, I remember just being in college and saying to myself, oh, one day I would just love to just live in New York. I don't want to have to pay to do it. And I'm thinking about maybe 30 days would be enough. Well, I tell you what, you tell God your plans, he answers, but he answers in his way. So obviously I got an opportunity to live in New York. I was on the 17th floor of my accommodations. I had a view of the Empire State Building.
Wow.
But I was like, Lord, this is not what I was talking about.
However, what you had in mind.
I'm not challenging you. That's right. I'm not challenging you, Lord. You got this.
Right.
But it was okay. It was okay. He knew in my heart that it was about service. And so I'm really excited. The other thing that was really nice is, I'm not sure if you guys know this, at 7:00 in New York City, all of the residents hang out their windows and they bang pots and pans thanking all of the service members for coming and taking care. So one day, the team, we all went out and we had signs, and, they were able to really physically see some folks out there. And that was just a joy. And we actually had the Surgeon General as well as the Assistant Secretary for Health post it on their Twitter pages, just, recognizing the PHS. And, I would be remiss if I did not put in a plug for the PHS, especially for those of you who have a public health background. At one point in time, we were paused on our recruitment, and actually we are now recruiting again. So for those of you new college grads, those of you who know college grads that'll be coming out, most of us have to have a master's, but nurses can come in, if I understand correctly, with a BSN. USPHS.gov. You can go there, find out information. And then find me if you have any questions. It is definitely a well-kept secret. I always joke about it and say, had I known about this, I would have been at retirement. However, the Lord knew what he was doing. He placed it in my lap right when it was time, when I was mature enough to accept it. So just had to put that plug in there.
Put the plug in.
That's right.
Another question from a viewer, and we're going to have to kind of start wrapping up here pretty soon. But Ginger Dorsey is asking, what is the most important lesson you learned from this deployment versus any other deployment you have completed?
First, I got to say, hey, Ginger. That's a Hamiltonian right there. So, I think what I learned is that leaders are really followers as well. Again, like I mentioned before, there is no I in teamwork, and you have to be able to do that. And then I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to complete this mission out here? This thing is big. And so it definitely matured me. I have to be honest about that. It sharpened my leadership skills up. I even told my current boss. And so how it works for me is I deploy, but then I go back to my day job where I'm a deputy division director for the agency I work in. And I just started that position just last year. So I have some tools now that I'm going to be able to utilize. And I think just continuing to sharpen me up for the next deployment, because there will be a next deployment.
Yes. Yeah.
Just wait for the next one.
Waiting. Now you have, I want to say, you must say hello to your Saras. There's several that have been commenting.
They're on here.
They are on here.
I know, and I started to look. This is the only pink and green thing I got right now. I'm trying to be neutral, but yes. And so some of those stores that are on there, actually all of them, but there are a few that know that they are my circle, and they checked in with me all the time, and they held me together. And so yes, I love Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
They love you too. They are all definitely supporting you. But it's also a testament to what Kim and I keep saying. You got to have your sister circle.
You have to.
That's the only way to make it through.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then, of course, my Taylor is a soror. She's my legacy, so I'm very excited about that too. So I had to give her a shout out. And my mother's on here, and so my mom is new to technology, but she made it on here. So, hey, Tish.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
She'll probably put it in the chat. So
awesome. So I have one final question before we have to say goodbye. We are already at the 40-minute mark, so time has gone by so fast.
Oh my goodness! So we can continue this conversation.
We'll
I
have
knew
to
love Reese. I knew you would love her.
Oh yeah,
she's keep talking to her.
I promised them I would not be long-winded though.
No, you're doing fine.
You too.
But we've talked about how you've managed and how you've coped and how you've been able to do all the things that you've done. And we began this segment talking about creating for yourself a coping kit, right? That you put things in that will help you to get through. So if you were to create a coping kit for yourself, what items would you put in that coping kit? Would you say that you are, that you can go to and draw strength from, or to help you calm down when you're stressed? What are some things that you might put in your own coping kit?
So definitely a devotional book that you can jot things down. I like to journal. I didn't do as much on this deployment as I should have, but I think that's important. And again, I hate to just lean on the sorors, but while I was gone, a group of sorors got together and gave me a doTERRA. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of these products, but they're different oils, and they have different purposes. And so when I got back, it was a humidifier with all of these different oils in there. And so I love that. I love aromatherapy. I love a candle. And so while I was deployed, I didn't have a bathtub. I had a shower. So just spending time in the shower, just taking a moment to just breathe was just a wonderful thing. And then you got to have those snacks. Come on now, ladies. You got to have those snacks. I had my Swedish fish. I had my junior mints, my gummy bears. You just got to have
those
things.
Happy.
You got to just have those things that make you happy. And so, that's why I tell people you do need to have that coping kit, as you stated. Put your favorite items in there. But for me, it was definitely the oils, diffusers, my little snacks. And then also being able to journal and have my devotion and commune with God too as well.
Yes. And that is so important, and thank God for a relationship with God, with anything, things like this. I don't know what I would be doing, where I would be doing.
That's right.
If I did not have that relationship. So we always try to end it with a scripture reference to whatever topic we're talking about. And for today, our scripture reference, we have 3, and I'm going to read them for you and the viewers. And it the first one says, for we walk by faith, not by sight. And this is 2 Corinthians 5:7. And peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. And that's John 14:17. And the last scripture reference, which I love this one, be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken.
Amen.
So, amen to that. So our scripture references.
Thank you so much, Kim. Yes. And thank you so much, Morissa. It has been a pleasure and a joy to have you. Thank you for your just leadership and your inspirational testament, just in the way you live and the way you present yourself. Yes. I know that you're a blessing to those who know you, and you've been a blessing to me, even though I just met you. I just look forward to getting to know you even after the show.
Thank you. So thank you. And I apologize. My eyes diverted a little bit because I was texting and letting everybody know I see you out there. Thank you so much for joining. I love all of y'all, everybody. Yes.
Well, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you. Bye. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. It's time for us to get out of here. Yes. But we are so glad that you tuned in, and we hope that you will join us again next week. We've been talking a lot about sister circles, and guys, next week, Kim and I are bringing our girlfriends to have a roundtable conversation to kind of wrap up this month where we've been talking about perseverance and different areas, and we are super excited to invite you in to that conversation next week. So mark your calendars. Don't miss it. In the meantime, remember, we're your girls. I'm Kim with an E.
And I'm Kim with an I.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey girl, thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please like k.roper at Hey Girl on Facebook. Also, follow Kim Jacobs and Kim Roper on Instagram and Facebook as well. That's Kim with an I and Kim with an E. We have all kinds of Hey Girl stuff happening during the week, and we don't want you to miss a thing. Be sure to tune in next week, and don't forget to bring a friend.